It was inevitable that they should make that claim sooner or later. The logic of their position demanded it, not merely the validity of experience, but the very existence of external reality was tacitly denied by their philosophy.
We're there, aren't we? And we're not being like snowflakes or being unduly scaremongering. We're there. I mean, they are literally claiming the polar opposite of what we can see to be true.
Well, you can tick off the whole list of ticky boxes that define. I think it was Primo Levi who came up with the list of the conditions of fascism, and we are absolutely there. It's terrifying, and I feel terribly. I mean, I feel deeply and sincerely for good progressive people in England and Wales and Ireland who think like you, and I guess think like me, and actually I think that's thinking rationally, and I think it's thinking morally, and who have no choice because you're not going to get out of this mess. We do have a choice. And that's why we will choose, I hope, please God, please God, please God, we can actually say there is another way. And perhaps the example of Scotland can give courage and hope to others.
Well, you mentioned that. We may be having a conversation about Wales in the not-too-distant future for a couple of reasons that you've just nudged us into. And fair play to you. I mean, we did a big phone-in. I'm sure you heard it yesterday on the issue that you raised. You know that my comeback, which is pretty weak and certainly not something I'm 100% subscribing to, is that if you were opposed to the breakup of Britain, which is one way of phrasing it, or Scottish independence, which is a different way of phrasing it, then you might argue, I think with some relevance and resonance, that you shouldn't let one man, Johnson, bring about what you describe. But if you wanted it already, then you're absolutely right to describe his every utterance and misstep as grist to the mill of Scottish independence. And you know, we said at the time, or shortly afterwards, but with the Brexit vote, that it was highly likely "Make Britain Great Again" never quite became a catchphrase in the way that "Make America Great Again" was for Trump's red meat racist base. But the notion of taking back control, essentially signalling the end of the United Kingdom, has already in a way come true. The end of the United Kingdom in its pre-Brexit form came about with the introduction of a border into the Irish Sea. Scotland next? I don't know. We will no doubt be talking about it again. Theo Ashwood is here, which I presume means that the postman has been.
Yes, the postman has been. We now have the letter from Lord Geidt to Boris Johnson from yesterday, setting out the reasons for his resignation. He says in that letter, James, that despite the Sue Gray report and, as you discussed, the miscommunication between his office and Number 10, which, as he put it, somehow gave the implication that he was responsible for the Prime Minister not being aware of his concerns. He said that left a very small margin, and those were his words, between the decision not to resign and resigning. Obviously, he sided with not resigning in the aftermath of the Sue Gray report. However, he then goes on to expand, in part, not completely, his reasons for resigning, saying that this week he was asked to...
I'm going to interrupt you a bit, because he said, I believed that it was possible to continue credibly as independent advisor, albeit by a very small margin, which takes us back to that clip you played earlier, because that was a man really
on the
dancing on a very small margin, which I think we both sort of agreed at, although I thought it was perhaps evidence he was about to fall off it, and you thought it was evidence he was determined to stay on it.
Yes. And now he goes on to say that he has crossed over that very small margin, but not because of the Sue Gray report, but because, as he put it, he was tasked with offering a view about the government's intention to consider measures which risk a deliberate and purposeful breach of the ministerial code. Lord Geidt goes on to say, this request has placed me in an impossible and odious position.
Again, I'm going to pause you there. This is the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ethics describing the Prime Minister as putting him in an impossible and odious position. And these people choose their words with great care.
And he goes on to say, my informal response on Monday was that you and other ministers should justify openly your position vis-à-vis the code in such circumstances. However, the idea that a Prime Minister might to any degree be in the business of deliberately breaching his own code is an affront. A deliberate breach, or even an intention to do so, would be to suspend the provisions of the code to suit a political end. This would make a mockery not only of respect for the code, but license the suspension of its provisions in governing the conduct of Her Majesty's ministers. I can have no part in this because of my obligation as a witness in Parliament. This is the first opportunity I have had to act on the government's intentions. I therefore resign from this appointment with immediate effect. We then have the Prime Minister.
Hang on, what's the breach, do you think? Because it's referencing Northern Ireland, is it? Is it the Trade Remedies Authority?
It is. It looks like it's the Trade Remedies Authority. So it's literally breaking news. So I've just got the Prime Minister's letter here, which it does expand on that. And the Prime Minister says, you say that you were put in an impossible position regarding my seeking your advice on potential future decisions related to the Trade Remedies Authority. My intention was to seek your advice on the national interest in protecting a crucial industry which is protected in other European countries and would suffer material harm if we do not continue to apply such tariffs. This has in the past had a cross-party support. It would be in line with our domestic law, but might be seen to conflict with our obligations under the World Trade Organization. In seeking your advice before any decision was taken, I was looking to ensure that we acted properly with due regard to the ministerial code. The Prime Minister concludes by saying, you carried out your duties admirably under very difficult circumstances. We have discussed the burdens placed on you by this increasingly public role and the pressures that would be felt by anyone in your position.
So we're not 100% clear, but it looks as if this is probably Lord Geidt concluding that the attempt to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol would actually involve a breach of the ministerial code?
Yes. I need to check that.
Yeah, I know, I do too. And we're both thinking out loud. But either way, the odious is probably the word that jumps out fastest, isn't it? Put me in an impossible and odious position. That's 2 for 2. Who'd take the job next, Theo?
It's a slight mystery as to who would take the job next. It's very difficult to see.
We're going to catch up with Paul Caruana Galizia next, the tortoise journalist who's been conducting that brilliant podcast, London Grad, although I suspect we might hear again from Theo Ushwood as well before 12 o'clock when a little bit more clarity has been brought to bear upon the latest resignation on principle from Boris Johnson's government. If it's the last, I will give you the money myself. It is 11:51 and you are listening to LBC. Jim Pickard is the chief political correspondent on the Financial Times and an absolutely brilliant journalist. He's reporting now that one source has told him this resignation from Lord Geidt relates to a plan to use tariffs to protect the UK steel industry. It's yet to be confirmed, but it increasingly doesn't look like it's linked to the Northern Ireland Protocol. But as Jim Pickard says, if he really has resigned over a potential breach of World Trade Organization rules to do with steel tariffs after sucking up everything else, you have to wonder if he just wanted an excuse to get out. But an impossible and odious position remains the description of what the latest independent ethics advisor to resign from Boris Johnson's inner circle considers the position that Boris Johnson had put him in. Mystery Hour on the way. It's 11:52. I went into Peter Jones in Sloane Square this week because I'm very much that kind of character, a man about town, and they had it. They had Mystery Hour. They had the board game in Peter Jones in Sloane Square, and I allowed myself a little moment actually of emotion, even because that's incredible. When I first moved to London, Peter Jones was like this mothership. All I knew about it was that we used to order my school uniform from there, even though I was at school in Worcestershire, because practically every private school in the country used to get its uniform from Peter Jones in Sloane Square. And, of course, that famous Betjeman line, when the former poet laureate was asked what he would do if there was a 4-minute warning in the context of a nuclear war. He said he would make his way to the haberdashery department at Peter Jones in Sloane Square because nothing awful could ever happen there. I feel a bit like that about Lakeland and Robert Dyas. But now it would be the games department at Peter Jones in Sloane Square, where as civilization and human existence comes to a juddering halt, I would be beholding the beauty of the Mystery Hour board game. I'll remind you how you can get hold of it if you're not near a branch of John Lewis shortly. But first, I'm delighted to tell you Paul Caruana Galizia is on the line. Paul, of course, is the reporter for Tortoise, to whom I promised that we would return when the next episode, the next instalment of his rather splendid podcast series, London Grad, was published. It's been published today. I left you with a cliffhanger after it was revealed by Paul that Alexander Lebedev, the man currently sanctioned in Canada after being described as a member of Vladimir Putin's inner circle, had set up a secure line, a non-monitored line for Boris Johnson, then Foreign Secretary, to speak to Sergei Lavrov, still Russia's foreign minister. And I wanted you to speculate on why that phone call never actually happened. Some of your suggestions include, did MI5 step in and say, what the hell are you doing, Johnson, you utter fool? No, that's not the answer. Did it happen because Boris Johnson didn't get paid first? No, that's not the call. Did the call not take place because Johnson flew out to meet him in person instead, said Kath in Scarborough. No, that's not the call. Raymond suggests, was he too drunk to take the call, James? No, Raymond, that's not the call. And Helen said, was he too hungover from the previous night's work meeting to take the call? I think Helen and Raymond possibly are getting a little bit close to the real reason. Paul, can you tell us what it was?
Well, it's pretty close to the last one, we think. So we heard that the call never happened, in fact, because Johnson overslept, which is just extraordinary. But maybe also understandable given the context. So this was arranged at one of the Lebedev's places in Umbria, where, they gather people to drink a lot, party a lot. And we know that also happened that weekend because this was the now notorious weekend where Boris Johnson appeared at Perugia Airport, the closest airport, looking really disheveled.
He looked like he'd slept in his suit, didn't he? And he didn't have any security officers with him, despite being Foreign Secretary at the time. That's
right. So the strip is also famous because he went there without his close protection officers, which as Foreign Secretary he was entitled to. He went there alone, he left alone, he was seen at the airport alone. And I think it's also significant that this trip happened right after a NATO summit in Brussels, which was, it was about a lot of things, but it was mainly about Russia's malign influence around the world. And the focus at the point was about the Salisbury poisonings. And at that meeting, Johnson himself urged his fellow foreign ministers to do more to counter Russian influence around the world. And then got on a plane to Perugia to meet Alexander Lebedev. So the thing, it took us a long time to get there. We were receiving tips that during this period, Alexander, who's kind of, for a number of years now, been trying to get in or back in with the Kremlin and show his worth and show his value to the Kremlin. And we heard that he had been trying to play this intermediary role in the wake of the Skripal poisonings. But that, any attempts at doing that were rumbled by Johnson's own staff at the Foreign Office, who were completely horrified by the idea, because obviously it was happening outside normal protocol, official channels, outside official government policy. And then we received the step that, in fact, it was on this weekend that a call was planned. And we were able to support it with 3 independent sources, all of whom were, connected to the Foreign Office, each in their own way.
This is the April 2018, isn't it? That
yes.
Infamous weekend. And I think that photograph you referred to, didn't it only emerge because a fellow holidaymaker couldn't quite believe what they saw in the departure lounge?
That's right. So the photos were taken by people at the airport, and one of them said they thought Johnson was going to be sick on the tarmac, and that he had a curved walk, which is just, it's really something. He was Britain's foreign secretary. And another thing so part of this episode is about the Russia report, right, from the ISC, the Committee Dominic Grieve chaired. A kind of little notice finding in that report is that after the Skripal poisonings, a number of this country's institutions were under attack. There were cyber attacks against, intelligence bodies and the Foreign Office itself. So it really was a dangerous moment in terms of Britain's relations with Russia.
You also, in your Twitter thread this morning, introducing the latest episode, you flag up Carol Cadwallader's recent piece under the headline, Putin has already deployed a chemical weapon in Salisbury, which again is something that seems to sometimes get forgotten in much of the reporting of the situation in Ukraine, the state of Russia and all attendant issues. Paul, remind my listeners how they can get hold of your podcast.
Sure. They can listen to it on Apple Podcasts app, or they can subscribe to Tortoise and listen to it there
How many more episodes to come? Remind me.
One more, which will be out today week.
A week today.
And I hope you stick around for that, because that's also quite juicy.
Is it? Well, you would say that, wouldn't you? You're hardly going to discount. You're hardly going to talk down the appeal of the final episode. But I haven't had the chance to listen to all of today, so I shall probably be listening to it on the tube home later. Paul Caruana Galizia, many thanks as always for your time today, and that podcast, as you heard, is available in all of the usual places. But the Tortoise Slow News website, they call it, which just means they go into more detail and take a little bit more time and space to explore matters, is something that comes very much with my highest recommendation. Should we just take a moment there to sort of wash off the sleaze and corruption of the current government that we find ourselves exploring every single day, and rejoice temporarily in the absurdities of life, the trivialities, the joy of the small things, the silly things, sometimes perhaps the serious things, but never on Thursdays at 12, the political things. It's time for Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere on your radio dial.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Mystery Hour with James O'Brien.
Oh, hello. 4 minutes after 12 is the time, and crikey, I got rather taken by surprise by my own programme then. I was just trying to get to the bottom of this Lord Geidt resignation. I think I know exactly what's happened, and I will share it with you, even though that involves a minor breach of Mystery Hour rules. Speaking of Mystery Hour rules, there is of course a prize available for my favourite contribution of the day, and that prize is a brand spanking new box full of Mystery Hour board game fun. Currently available, as I mentioned a moment ago, in branches of John Lewis, as well as online at mysteryhour.co.uk and at various other online retailers. But there are rules, because this is now a very grown-up and proper radio programme, although I think we can all agree it wasn't when we invented Mystery Hour. There are now terms and conditions on the website, which you are free to consult at lbc.co.uk. Other than that, the only rubric I am responsible for is a quick reminder of the phone number, 0345 6060 973, and then to let Mystery Hour commence. Should we just crack straight on? I mean, if you still need the rules explaining, then just listen for 10 minutes and they should become clear. And then if you break any by accident when you ring in, I'll just tell you off and everyone will be happy, right? So, are there any rules? Not really. You know, if you're going to ring in with an answer, you're not allowed to look it up. That's pretty much all that we've got left, isn't it? It's sort of obvious, you'd think, but less so if you're just tuning in for the first time. You're not allowed to Google it or look it up. If you looked it up last week because you were helping the kids with their homework, that's fine. That qualifies. That's a qualification. But that's it, I think. 12:05 is the time. Shall we start with Charlotte, who is in Crystal Palace? Charlotte, question or answer?
Oh, James, hi. I've got a question. It should be a walk in the park for you, broadcaster.
Okay? You say that. I'm worried now. Go on.
Okay, how new does news have to be to be considered breaking news? And alternatively, how old does news have to be before it stops being considered as breaking news?
Well, it's not, as you've probably gathered, it's not an exact science.
I miss news flashes, James. I want an old-fashioned news flash when there's real breaking news.
I would actually agree with you, but I think those days are behind us now forever.
Oh, no.
I mean, really, people stick breaking, especially on Twitter. They stick it on anything now. And sometimes all it means is this is the first time we've reported it, and it bears no resemblance whatsoever or makes no reference whatsoever to the fact that a rival may have reported it 10 minutes ago. Or I think it's largely meaningless, unfortunately, Charlotte.
I think the end you, Jane, is to get behind the cause and
I don't know what you could do to sort of, what would you do? You'd punish people who claimed that they were breaking a story, as in publishing it or broadcasting it for the very first time before anybody had done so. And if you did that, you'd be punished.
I love it. But, 24-hour rolling news everywhere. Look, when I was growing up in the 70s, it was midday or one-ish, 6 o'clock and then 10 o'clock.
I know.
We got on with our lives in between.
I know, I hear you. Although LBC was around in that era, and we're not really doing rolling. Our sister station does rolling news. I think we can pretty much say what it means now is this is just happening now, or this is being published or reported for the first time, or we are irresponsibly claiming that this is being published for the first time because we don't want to admit that our rivals published it 20 minutes ago. That's your lot.
And you say that for how long? For an hour?
I even that, I mean, you're going to look a little bit ridiculous if you claim it's breaking an hour after other people reported it. But I think there are instances and examples of people actually doing that. So I truly think it's been rendered utterly meaningless by modernity.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm going to give myself a round of applause if that's all right with you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Qualifications, know it all. 12:07 is the time. Thank you, Charlotte. Lily is in Leamington Spa. Lily, question or answer?
It's a question.
Carry on.
I was watching Springwatch last night.
Oh, yeah.
And they were on the Isle of Mull, and they were talking about the puffins.
Yes.
And they said that there are these black-backed gulls that swallow the puffins whole.
Baby puffins?
No, like adult puffins.
How big are the gulls?
Puffins. I don't know. I think they're pretty big. Well, they were saying because, like, you'd think that having humans on the land would put the puffins off, but they actually like it, and they go and sit next to the people.
No, they're ludicrously tame puffins. I don't know why, probably because they haven't been conditioned to fear humans, but you see it in North Berwick sometimes.
The humans put the gulls off from eating them.
Right.
Whereas when the humans go, the puffins go back out to sea. But anyway, it's a bit of a morbid question.
Well, go on.
But it's like, what happens when something gets swallowed whole by something else? Does it stay alive? Does it suffocate? Does it dissolve?
Well, I think it would be it would be all of the above. It would be alive to start with. Probably.
How long for?
Well, I mean, it depends, doesn't it, on how big it is, or I mean, I don't know what would count as a definitive answer on this one. If you swallow it whole without killing it first, then it is going to be alive for some of the journey through your body, isn't it? And then I imagine it is more likely to suffocate than be actually killed by the consequences of stomach acids. So, or it might have a heart attack and die of fear on its way down a seagull's gullet. But I imagine it's suffocation. Would that count as an answer if an expert...
I mean, yeah, I suppose, like you say, it probably depends on the animal as well.
I'm just struggling. Were you paying attention? My wife knits now when we're watching telly, and sometimes she misses crucial moments. Were you paying attention? I'm struggling to conceive of a gull big enough to swallow a puffin whole.
I thought that might be the case. I actually went and rewatched it before I called to make sure that I wasn't
that's the level. That's the level of detail and attention that we expect on this program.
I'm taking it seriously. Don't worry.
And it was a gull swallowed a puffin whole.
It was a black-backed gull, and they said that they will swallow them whole. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if it's not true, take it up with Springwatch.
I will. But I'll specifically ask about that then. So when a gull swallows a puffin, how does the puffin die?
Yeah.
You're on.
Yeah.
It is quite morbid, actually. Why do you want to know?
Sorry. I don't know. I just thought it was quite interesting.
Your curiosity has been piqued.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lily.
Yeah, that's all right.
We shall do our best. 10 minutes after 12 is the time. Gulls and puffins. When a gull swallows a puffin whole and unchewed, how does... I mean, I'm thinking of snakes, actually, that most obviously swallow their prey whole, and presumably some of them have been crushed first, but I don't... Anyway. Mitch is in Chelmsford. Mitch, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, Mitch.
I recently returned from my honeymoon to Costa Rica.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Are you still together? Are you still together?
Just about. Even though what I'm about to tell you is
intimate.
Challenged it.
Carry on,
but wonderful place, wonderful people, but they were heavy on the mosquitoes over there, James. And while my wife got bitten perhaps 3 times in the 3 weeks that we were there, I was getting bitten 3 times on the hour, every single hour. Yeah. And I want to know what makes me so irresistible to these creatures.
To mosquitoes. So your new wife was not bitten as enthusiastically as you were?
It was constantly, mate. I was getting...
but your wife wasn't?
Yeah, wasn't, yeah. So what's the science between... what are they searching for, these things? I mean, do I look like a curry to them and she looks like a piece of lettuce?
It's a really good question, because everyone listening to this who's ever been on holiday somewhere mosquito-ish will know that some family members get bitten a lot more than others. I'm more like your wife, thankfully. It's one of the rare areas of biology where I appear to have some sort of evolutionary advantage over other people. But
I was even applying like the industry standard sort of repellent all over me ankles and me legs, and they just seemed to chew through that as well, and she wouldn't need to put any on. And
wow,
again, wouldn't get bitten.
But no, I'm perhaps not as superpowered as she is, one of my daughters gets bitten a lot and the other one less so, and my wife gets bitten more than I do. And I don't know, and I look forward to this because I'm in Greece soon, and no doubt the conversation will come up. And if I can keep my counsel until then, after getting a definitive answer, then I'll get that little look on their faces where they go, oh, flipping out, Dad, that's just boring. Why are you even telling us this stuff? But it's not boring to us, Mitch, which is why I shall endeavour to find out, mate. Thank you. Why do mosquitoes prefer some people to others? 0345 606 0973. Imran is in Ilford. Imran, question or answer?
Can I ask a question, please?
Carry on, Imran.
I was just looking at my passport the other day for just make sure they're all valid, and I've noticed where you have to where it's all filled in with the name, nationality, etc. It's got it in English and in French, and I'm just wondering why the requirement for French or any other language.
Where does it have it in French? Whereabouts is it in French? I haven't looked at my passport. I need to dig it out, actually. I'm flying to Ireland tomorrow. Thanks for the reminder, actually.
No worries. Where it says name, it says name/nom, and then it's got my name underneath it. Where it says nationality, it's got nationality and then the French equivalent.
No, you're right.
So I'm just wondering, why? Why French? And if there was a reason for it back in the day, why is it still on there now? I've never sort of understood that.
No, I mean, I'm thinking about the Norman conquest. I'm wondering whether the origins of the royal family, origins of... But that can't be it, can it? Or just... No, I've got absolutely no idea. Why does our passport... I mean, crikey, I'll tell you what, when Nigel Farage finds out about this, it's going to be hell to pay.
He won't be happy now.
He won't be happy. So they've got what? They've got French on a British passport? That's absolutely outrageous.
I'm sure there was a reason. But
there must be a reason. I'm with you now. I'm really... That is a really lovely example of a question that I can't quite believe has never come up before, because that's an absolutely brilliant question about something...
I've only noticed it myself for the first time last week, and I thought I won't research it. I'm going to ring in Mystery Hour and see what happens.
That's what we're here for, Imran.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love that. Why is there French on good British passports, which are finally the correct colour, although there's some dispute over whether that is actually black or blue? It's coming up to 12:15. I'll tell you what I'll do quickly, I think, if I may. I'll just talk you quickly through exactly what's gone on with Lord Geidt, or what expert opinion seems to suggest has happened here, because it is not immediately clear. It looks like Chinese steel tariffs. So there were... Actually, I need to double check before I explain it to you. 12:15 is the time.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
60 minutes after 12. No, I have got it. I do understand exactly, or what I think the most informed expert opinion is on this resignation by Lord Geidt with reference to the World Trade Organization. So last year, the Independent Trade Remedies Authority recommended that the UK remove a number of safeguard tariffs on Chinese steel, presumably to align with World Trade Organization requirements. This led to the steel industry kicking off, because it's been on its knees for a while, and some emergency legislation was introduced which allowed the Department of Trade to overrule the Trade Remedies Authority, which had found no legal justification for retaining the tariffs. Okay, they were extended for a year, and that expires at the end of this month. So Lord Geidt would have been asked essentially to advise on the legality or otherwise of doing so. It seems likely that the UK will continue to apply the tariffs on Chinese steel, again against the recommendations of the Trade Remedies Authority, but it will not have any legal justification to do so. And so sort of deliberately, if you like, doing something without any legal justification would appear to constitute a breach of the ministerial code. It all goes back to Donald Trump's trade war, with a side order of Brexit, of course, because it would appear now that World Trade Organization rules are bad. And you'll remember that in the run-up to leaving the European Union, an awful lot of people who understand precisely nothing about exactly everything were adamant that living under World Trade Organization rules without any trade deal with our biggest trading partner would be absolutely hunky-dory and absolutely fine. So there it is. And I'm grateful to Sam Lowe, who's a senior visiting research fellow at King's, for that analysis, which I have done my best to convey to you. Back to Mystery Hour, 18 minutes after 12 is the time. Mark is in Telford. Mark, question or answer?
Question, James.
Carry on.
So all the land masses, well, the vast majority of the land masses of the world all appear to be wider at the top in the north, and then taper off and get narrower to the south. So North America, South America, Greenland, Africa, Asia tapers into India. The only one I can think of doesn't is Europe and Australia. And I was wondering if anybody knew why.
Yeah. Are you sure about this?
Sure.
South America is an absolute humdinger. I mean, you've got that. Brazil big at the top, Argentina the sort of bottom spine of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you turned Greenland upside down, it would look that different from.
Okay, yeah, but Greenland isn't that large, is it?
No, Australia is not part of what you describe.
No, Africa does.
Yeah.
North America does. Africa's kind of connected to Europe.
North America does, really. I mean, you've got Mexico coming out the bottom of America, which makes it look like it's tapering. But going east from Mexico, you've got a relatively flat bottom. And you know, all of those little islands between Canada and Greenland, you could describe them as a tapering. I don't.
Yeah.
India, this thinner at the bottom. Is it? Maybe it's the way the human eye works, and we're drawn to the bottom.
Maybe it's the mercury scale of the maps. I'm not sure, but when you look at the world map,
you look at Algeria and Libya. If you turned Africa upside down, it would look as if well, no, it's got a broader bottom. I mean, it's a fascinating question. I'm rubbish at geography. I'm having to look at a map to do it, or any of this. I wouldn't have known what was up and what was down otherwise. But I'll put the question on the board with the caveat that it might not actually be a true premise for the question.
Okay, thank you.
But no, why do you want to know?
Oh, I know that at one time there was one large landmass, Pangaea, which we call Pangaea, and then it broke up.
And so the answer might involve tectonic plates or something like that. It looks more sensible, your question, on the map that is sort of ovoid, you know, the one that's like the unfolded globe as opposed to the flat map. So maybe, anyway, I'll put it on board. I hope we get you a nice answer to that. It's a lovely question.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And it's allowed me to sort of just remind myself how absolutely appalling my geography is. That's quite breathtaking. And at risk of going full Alan Partridge, I was about to say something like, God, who would have thought Africa was there? 21 minutes after 12 is the time. Leo is in Hackney. Leo, question or answer?
Question, James.
Carry on.
For my 8-year-old, she asked me how come that we are able to have a conversation with ourselves in our head.
Crikey. I mean, that's either very easy to answer or incredibly complicated, and I'm not entirely sure which.
Well, you know, it was bedtime, last question of the night. I attempted an answer and started babbling like our Prime Minister, saying nothing. And then I tried with the, you know, our hair is connected to the universe. And then, but at the end, I just said, I can't explain it to you.
But what's the source of her confusion? I mean, because really, it's like talking without opening your mouth. I don't see it as being particularly mysterious. It's just,
I guess because she's been doing a lot of theater lately.
Yes.
And she was probably rehearsing her play on her head. I really don't know what was going on at that time.
No, I know. I'm just trying to pin down what the answer would look like, because it's not. I mean, is she asking? And
how can I put it to her?
Yeah.
You know, without.
How can Leo explain to his 8-year-old why they have conversations in their head?
Yes.
Okay. I mean. We're fingers crossed, mate, on this one. Because I don't know. We'll try someone. Well, you never know. It might be an area of academia that means someone can actually provide a really easy answer. I love that. Great questions this week. Thank you, Leo. So we're looking for the conversations in your own head. Why can we have conversations in your own head? And it needs to be explained in a way that Leo can then adopt for his 8-year-old. Was it Mark who asked about the countries being? Why do continents appear to taper off as they head downwards? Why does the British passport, contain French of all things? Why do mosquitoes find some humans considerably more appetising than others? When a gull swallows a puffin, how does the puffin die? And I think I went all in on the breaking news one. So that's at least one person who won't be winning the Mystery Hour board game, because it was me that answered that question. Alex is in Fulham. Alex, question or answer?
Hello, James.
Hello.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Love the show and the books. So my question is, why is it that you can remember the music in some songs but not the lyrics, or vice versa? So, like the lyrics but not the actual music.
So it's about musical memory in a way, I guess. I mean, is this going to be an objective answer? Because I'm always struck by how different everybody is in these sort of fields, in the same way that some people can sing in tune and some people can't. Some people have perfect recall.
Yeah, it seems a bit weird to me because
I can't recall music ever. I can never recall music. Even the song that I think I know inside out, if I try to do it unaccompanied, you won't recognise the tune at all.
Yeah, and you seem to like know it better when you have the song kind of playing in the background. You can just remember it word for word. But it's like, surely it's all just sound, right?
Yeah, but then someone's... So if I tried now to hum to you, let's say... Stone Roses. If I tried to do I Want to Be Adored by the Stone Roses. That's not even close. No, but Happy Birthday to You. That's really easy. So that the answer might be contained in those two examples, in that some tunes, for technical musical reasons, lend themselves to ease of recall. And the same with lyrics. I mean, it's like poems. It's like you try to learn a poem. Tumty Tumty Tum poems are much easier to remember than complicated blank verse, aren't they?
I suppose so. But it's just like the actual instrumental can be so easy to I don't know. It just sticks in your ear.
Yeah, I think that Happy Birthday being probably the best example of the most easy to remember tune that any of us ever encounter. All right, how are we going to phrase the question? We might have to leave lyrics out of it. So why are some tunes easier to remember than others?
Yeah, I suppose.
I like that. And we get a side order of lyrics, but we'll focus first on the main course of the music. Thank you, Alex. Why are some tunes easier to remember than others? It's a really good question, that. And my apologies to Ian Brown and John Squire and indeed Manny and Rennie, if they're listening, for my appalling rendition there of one of the finest songs of all time. Did I tell you that? I'm 99% sure Ian Brown was at the next table from me in a vegetarian Indian restaurant in Hammersmith the other day. I was eating my dozer, and I was just thinking to myself that the bloke at the table behind me was either absolutely steeped in that early 90s Manchester culture or pretending to be. And I had no way of knowing. I was trying to read my book while eating the curry. And the accent, the references, I mean, it was almost like a cliche of Mancunian cool from that era, that Manchester era. And it didn't cross my mind that it might actually be one of the great figures from that era, albeit that, as with an awful lot of my heroes from that age, a combination of the coronavirus coverage and a couple of other things has rather knocked the gloss off. But then he got up to leave, and I'm pretty sure it was actually him. Anyway, I digress slightly. 12:27 is the time. Wendy is in Glasgow. Wendy, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Carry on.
It's in relation to the two languages, English and French, on passports.
Yes.
I previously worked in the airport, and we were trained by immigration officers for part of our profiling course.
Oh, yes.
And the reason they use two languages is because they were the two sort of widely spoken languages in the world. So if you are
Go on.
If you are, say, from an English-speaking country, then your second languages are French. If you're a French-speaking country, your second language will be English. If you're another country like Spain, Italy, Brazil, the government, they'll decide which language will be the second language, either English or French.
But why do I need a second language on it, given that I speak my first language fluently?
I think the idea is, so if you're going through the likes of, if you're going through like immigration, etc., the chances are hopefully somebody will be able to pick up
I know this. I'm feeling a little bit flimsy here because I'm going to contradict you on this one. I think it dates back to French being the language of international diplomacy.
It's also, I think, from what they told us, it also goes back to, I think, as well, from when the UK and France had really large colonies.
That will be part of it, but that would explain why France is the international language of diplomacy. I think that is the answer.
Yeah.
So, because passport is a French word, I think they sort of invented international diplomacy in this sense, and that's why the sort of it's called a lingua franca, isn't it? The sort of the language that is a sort of default for everybody would have been French for a very long time. So I think that's the answer. I'm going to give you the round of applause.
Okay.
But I think I think it's more to do with diplomatic history and tradition than it is to do with the popularity of the respective languages.
It is definitely more to do with that because of the history behind it.
Let's do it. Round of applause for Wendy.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Wendy. Nicely done. And don't tell Nige, is all I can think of saying in response to that reminder from Imran that the passport has flipping French on it, of all things. It's coming up to 12:30. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Still lots of questions in need of answers, but still, of course, time for you to get your question on the board. After Amelia Cox brings you the very latest headlines.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
32 minutes after 12 is the time. I'm always keen to take constructive criticism. Tom just tweeted, Lord Geidt bomb has just dropped and you and Alex are humming happy birthday on the radio. Where is Theo Usherwood? I'm pretty sure we've covered it, mate. I don't know whether you're listening on delay or something like that, or whether you've only just got up, but I'm pretty sure we've done chapter and verse, including the explanation of the role of steel tariffs playing in proceedings, which haven't actually been reported or properly explained in the context of either letter. But if there are further developments and more news, I'm sure Theo will come cartwheeling into the studio imminently. 12:32 is the time, and I was rather enjoying that little musical interlude when Alex and I started humming Happy Birthday, albeit from rather different perspectives. Nina's in St Albans. Nina, question or answer?
Answer, please, James.
Carry on, Nina.
So it's the answer to why mosquitoes find some people tastier than other people.
Oh, yes.
And I have something called thalassemia trait. I don't know if you've heard of thalassemia.
I have not, no.
So it was sort of, it's a blood disorder in people that often come from hot countries. My dad's Italian, but it's lots of African countries, etc. as well.
Right.
And it means that we have less hemoglobin, so we always look anemic when we have a blood test, even though we're not.
Oh, okay.
We have less hemoglobin, less red blood cells, and mosquitoes particularly hate us because we are not as bloody. So that's one reason, but the other reason also is they prefer warmer body temperatures because they're cold-blooded creatures. And also they prefer smellier people, but not smelly as determined by us, but smelly according to their standards.
Well. So there's lots of little variables. So you're golden then when you're in hot countries. You hardly ever get bitten.
I'm golden. I never get bitten, though. And I researched this as a teenager because there are downsides to this. Obviously, I feel more tired than usual. I have to keep really fit, keep the oxygen flowing around my body.
Right.
And when I was a teenager, very resentful of why I had this thalassemia trait, I did my research and found out there are actually numerous benefits, including
found a silver lining, so to speak, albeit that that's a pretty good answer, isn't it? That's pretty going to cover it, and the other bits as well, sort of warmth, body temperature, because you have slight differences in that, which a mosquito is going to pick on, and pheromones would be the smell, would it? Giving off the
smell.
Well, round of applause for Nina. What a lovely answer!
Yay!
Great work.
Oh, you've made my day, made my week, made my life, James. Thank you.
What can I say, Nina? It's I'm here to serve. 12:34 is the time. Mandy is in Epsom. Mandy, question or answer?
Hello, question.
Hello,
please.
Mandy. Yes.
Right. I just wanted to know why Australians do not have any kind of regional dialects, considering how far they are from each other. They all kind of speak the same.
Do you mean accents or dialects?
I meant accents. Did I say dialects? Sorry, accents. Yeah.
No, that's
regional
fine.
accents.
I think you're wrong.
No. I'm wrong.
I think you are. I think there are different accents in Australia.
Indeed, there might be, right?
Yeah.
To live for 10 years.
Oh, the phone line's driving me potty. I don't know what's happened to it. I'll give you one more chance, but if it goes clicky like that again, I'm going to have to come back to you in a minute. Go on.
Okay, so I lived there for 10 years,
right.
And particularly you do meet people that speak.
Oh, there it's gone. I thought that was going to happen. It's almost like I'm psychic. We'll try and get an answer for that, or we'll try and get her back up. But the regional accents, I guess, because there's 3 accents, isn't there, in Australia that they talk about, but I don't think they're regional. They're more to do with class. Why are they not? Probably because it's quite a new country. So, but then everyone would have... I don't know. Tim's in Market Harbour. Tim, question or answer?
answer, hopefully.
Carry
James.
on.
Love the show. Love you and Sheila.
Thank you.
Listen to you every day.
Thank you. You should stick around for Eddie. He's brilliant.
So, I think the why we talk to ourselves in our heads relates to a book that I read called The Chimp Paradox.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've ever read that.
No, I haven't. Go on.
Well, basically, we separate ourselves from animals thousands of years ago in terms of they only have a basic brain that has fight or flight, or shelter, or procreate.
Sure.
Whereas we developed a human brain, which would give us the opportunity to apply logic to the situation. So therefore, say, white van man cuts you up on the motorway. Your first feeling is flash him, chase after him, have a fight with him. And that's your chimp, that's your basic memory saying, that's your basic brain saying fight or flight.
Yes.
But the human brain takes about 7 seconds longer to kick in, and then it says, just let him go. Just let him go. There's no point having a crash, no point ruining your day waiting for the AA on the side of the road. Just let him go. He's bound to cause himself a problem later down the line. So it's a basic difference between animals and humans.
It's a consequence of evolution. Is this the answer that Leo's daughter is going to be? Was it daughter or son? I can't remember. Is this the answer that Leo's child is going to be looking for? Is that going to work for an 8-year-old?
I think he needs to read The Chimp Paradox.
Don't be ridiculous. He wants to do it at bedtime tonight. He hasn't got time to read a book to him.
Maybe he could start reading the book to her at night time. That would definitely get her off to sleep.
I was going to say, I don't know whether the last time you were on bedtime duties with an 8-year-old was, but it's all about the Gruffalo these days, mate. You don't want to be reading The Chimp Paradox. I say these days. It was when mine were that age, 10 years ago. Okay, so having a more sophisticated process for analysing the world around us. We'd be describing things and thinking. It's thinking. This is why I was uncomfortable with the question, because it's just thinking that she's describing, isn't it? Words in our head is thinking. Conversation.
But you'd have to talk to her about why it's happening. I am still a pretty loud guy, and one of my jobs, my boss got me to read it, and it really did change my life, because it shows you how other people interact with you and why they're doing what they're doing, and often they're reacting to their chimp, their basic mind, which is, you say something, anything, quite innocently, and they will think that you've meant something else, and they react badly, but it helps you say, well, they probably didn't mean that.
It's like a kind of it's like a kind of edit button or a pause button, which allows you to more effectively process the information around you rather than having a sort of knee-jerk response. I'm going to give you the round of applause on that. Thank you, Tim. Maybe room for an embellishment, but I don't know. 12:39 is the time. Mandy is in Epsom. Mandy, question or answer?
Oh, hello. Question.
You back again?
I'm back again. So basically, I'm just saying this quickly in case you get cut off again, but in case it goes wrong. Okay. So you challenged me on that in terms of different...
politely, though. Don't make it sound like I was being like a bear with a sore head. I was only...
No, I understand. Yes. Yeah. But you were right to do so, because, yes, indeed, there are some different accents, but they're not regional. No. So you'll get your educated accent, but that could be somebody in Perth or somebody in Sydney. They'd speak exactly the same. You'd get a bush kind of, what they call bush accent.
That'd be like Crocodile Dundee. Mick Dundee.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. Exactly. And then you've got your general sort of population. And then, of course, you've got indigenous, and that's another story, because obviously the way they speak English might be different again. But
yes, of course.
Your general population. So you do have a kind of round these three accents, I'd say.
But they're more to do with socio-economics than geography.
I would say so, yeah. And I don't understand how that, why that is.
It's a brilliant question. No. I'll try and find out for you.
Thank you very much.
No, I really like. Is there not... Do Melbourne people not sound different from Sydney people?
Oh, absolutely, no way, no. Only if you're in a little suburb, because I did live closely to where there's like a big Italian population, they might bring a little twang to it, the Italian community. Yeah. But that's different again, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, no, it is. It's Strine, isn't it? The rural one, the bush Australian. They call it Strine, I think. Strine.
Yeah, there you go. Strine. Yeah.
Got it. That's a brilliant question. That's fine. I mean, there should
true blue Aussies speak how they speak.
That's
there
it.
You go.
I saw. Barry Humphries on stage last weekend, the one before last, and when he's in his different characters and then his normal accent, he'd be like whatever you call it, the posh version of Australian when he's in his normal character. I don't know what Dame Edna is though. The Melbourne housewife. Was she a Melbourne housewife or a Sydney housewife? I can't remember. 12:41 is the time. Polly's in Northampton. Polly, question or answer?
Hi, James. It's a question.
Hello, Polly.
Hi. Can I just really quickly say I'm quite nervous about this. I've run this question by a lot of people and no one knows the answer, so I thought I'm going to call in.
Okay. Don't be nervous.
Hard one.
Don't be...
Well, that one about the Australian accent is quite hard to follow.
All right, go on.
I'm an organ donor, and we can obviously donate organs, etc. after death. My mum just had a hip replacement, and they fitted it with some sort of metal.
Yeah.
Why can we not, so long as they're healthy, donate bones after death as well?
Because there's no need.
Oh, that's what... I know, but maybe before there was metal or something, maybe before...
No, I mean, your mum's new hip is better than having someone else's old one.
Yeah.
Why do you sound so disappointed? I think that's...
Because...
Go on.
No, I know. Because I wanted it to go on the board.
Well, it can't really, because I mean, it's all. I don't want to sound rude, but it's bloody obvious, isn't it?
I thought it was a really good question. Okay, what about...
Just because I've answered it doesn't mean it's not a good question.
Okay.
Why aren't bones donated after death? Because nobody wants your old bones, Polly.
Well, no.
That's the short answer.
No.
Well, who would? In what circumstances do you mean you're thinking about a hip replacement operation? Why don't they use someone else's old hip? Because that's already going to be old.
Mm-hmm.
It might still be functioning. The person whose hip it was might not have needed a hip replacement, but they're going to be closer to needing a hip replacement than a brand spanking new titanium hip, aren't they?
Right. Okay, well, what about then if it's just a normal... a terrible break that can't be fixed with putting in metal, so like a really bad fracture that they have surgeries and all that sort of stuff that's not fixed, and stick an arm bone in there.
This isn't like a jigsaw puzzle. This is the arm bone that you're replacing will be very, 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 very closely calibrated with the rest of the bones. Right. The idea that some random person who's recently passed away having exactly the right size bone for your arm, as opposed to machine tooling it, but no, Polly, it's not. It's not. However much you wriggle. I'm not getting angry. How dare you suggest that?
No, you hate it.
I don't hate it. I just... the longer it goes on, the more frustrated I am going to become. I can tell. Sure. So I think I'll just take the round of applause now. Thank you.
Thanks.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Someone will tell me that I'm wrong, but I don't think there's going to be a better answer than nobody wants anybody else's old bones on this occasion. It may be, I don't know, Frankenstein, possibly, Dr. Frankenstein, maybe. Thank you, Polly. Linda, this is made up now. After I made such a mess of Kakugbury yesterday, I'm going to have a crack at this one. Culty Bragan. Linda?
That's it. Culty Bragan, yeah.
There we go. Question or answer, Linda?
It's an answer from a true blue Aussie.
Oh, fantastic. This is awful. I'm going to start lapsing into an Australian accent now, and I'm not intending to, but it's almost contagious, isn't it? Go on, what have we got?
That's all right. Give it a go. It's fairly boring, really. I think we just haven't been around long enough.
Yeah.
So that's why we've got, like you say, we've got regional dialect. You can hear words, the way people say certain words or the words that they use that could let you know, give you an idea of where they come from. Like in Adelaide, they tend to be more sort of, they say dance and France and things like that.
Okay.
But Melbourne tend to they'll say Melbourne. We don't say Melbourne or that it's Melbourne. Whereas, up in Sydney and other areas, they might say a bit more Melbourne.
But there's no, so it is just the population being relatively young in the historical sense, because accents, there's all sorts of theories as to how they develop. But things like if you're in an industrial area, then the oxygen, the fact that there's a lot of smog around. This is one of the theories behind the black country accent, because everybody's nose is blocked all the time with all the smog and stuff going on.
It's the same with the Australian accent, because there's a theory. Well, I don't know if it's my theory, if I read it, but there's a theory that they were all talking very very British when they arrived in Australia. But of course, it's so sunny there that everyone started squinting. So if you try speaking with a British accent and squint, You suddenly sound Australian.
Oh, that's a fantastic theory. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Blimey.
So that's the easiest way if you want to put on an Australian accent. Just squint.
And what do they say about if you do an Irish accent while you're holding your nose, you'll sound like an American as well or something? But there is a sort of facial. There's a facial tightness to the Australian accent, isn't there, Linda?
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Is true.
Yeah.
But now that you're in Scotland, where it's not so hot, do you find that your accent is diluting slightly as your face relaxes?
Well, do you know, weirdly, I've been here for 15 years and people still obviously just ask me where I came from. It's no different. It's
not
just
going
not
anywhere.
changed.
I love it.
And they laugh if I try to put on a Scottish accent.
So we've got white collar, blue collar and country going on, really, in Australia.
Pretty much, yeah. And Queensland. Queensland's a bit of a thing, like, you can sometimes guess Queensland.
Oh,
but that's about it, because they do tend to be a little bit more broad up there. But I'm probably going to get roasted.
Oh, you've been very diplomatic. You've been very diplomatic. I love it.
Can I tell you that Dave Edna is from Moonee Ponds in Melbourne?
From where?
Moonee Ponds.
That's right. Of course she is, and that is that quite a genteel area? That's.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I think she was she liked a bit of a hyacinth bouquet.
I was about to say she's something of a social climber. Poor old Norm. Hey, thank you, Linda. That was lovely stuff. Round of applause. No worries. Okay. There we go. Just to conclude, just in case anyone was doubting your Australian credentials, we're going out on a no worries. 12:47 is the time.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
It is 12:50 and still in need of answers. I'm going to get rinsed, aren't I, on the bone question? So, Polly, I'm probably going to owe you an apology. That's not very funny, is it? All right. I'm keeping my other rounds of applause, though. James is in Bracknell. Come on, then. Be gentle.
James?
Yeah?
How you doing, short-term listener? I'm Australian and I sell hip and knee replacements, so I might be able to help you with a couple of things.
That's fantastic. You couldn't make it up, could you? An Australian who's coming on after... I love it. Anyway, go on. What have you got?
So we do use what's called an allograft. So It comes from a dead person. We use bone, we use ligaments, we use all different types of stuff. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to create a scaffold with the bone. So if you haven't got enough bone after an accident or anything like that, we're going to create a scaffold. And then the immune cells are going to come in and they're going to, repair that defect.
Like a graft.
So basically, exactly. That's what it's called. It's called a graft. You can do what's called an autograft. So it'll come from you, so from somewhere around your pelvis, areas that you don't really need.
Yeah.
But then if you've got a massive defect, let's say you've smashed your face on the steering wheel or something like that,
yes,
then you can use different types of bone to sort of fill in that void. Then the immune cells will come in. They irradiate it so that there's no sort of damaging cells in there. And then, it'll create a scaffold to then refill the bone that's missing.
Two questions. Number one, how did you end up flogging hip replacements in the UK, in Bracknell?
I did it in Australia. I escaped lockdown because we had one of the worst lockdowns in the world in Melbourne. Made my way over here and was lucky enough to get a job with a good British company.
Fantastic. And secondly, do you speak with broad, general or cultivated Australian, do you think?
What do you mean?
Well, the three main varieties are broad, general, and cultivated.
I don't know if I don't know what that means, to be honest with you.
Broad would be like an ochre.
Okay.
So you're not an ochre. You don't sound like an ochre, do you?
Well, so there is subtle accents. We can tell South Australians, especially, they sound a lot more English, but it is very subtle. So perhaps to the untrained ear, you wouldn't notice it. But
it all sounds the same.
It all sounds similar, yeah.
I think you're general. I'd say you were closer to sort of Hugh Jackman, Ian Thorpe, rather than cultivated, which would be Geoffrey Rush.
Well, I'll take that.
I'm going to give it anyway. You've got a round of applause. I can't believe you've come on after the last caller, after the question about Australian accents to answer to make me look like a fool. Of course they do use, but they don't use whole bones. So it's anyway. Sorry, Polly. Please accept my apologies. I'm sticking with that gag, even though it's appalling. Thank you, James. Paul's in Ashton. Paul, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on.
To the music question about why is the music more memorable than the words? It's because the music is repeated throughout the song.
Right.
Repetition is one of the pillars of
memory,
being able to remember something.
Of course.
why all the ads in the ad breaks are all the same all the time.
And why are some tunes easier to remember than others? Is it the same reason?
If they use a small number of notes that are repeated, that makes them more memorable.
So everyone can remember, he's just a poor boy from a poor family. He's just a poor boy from a poor family. Because
that's just general repetition because we've heard it so much.
And it's quite a simple tune. And then if you were trying to do a complicated sonata or something like that, it would be both more complicated and less repetition.
Yes.
Qualifications? I like this answer.
I do courses on memory technique and train people in how to remember things for revision and presentations and anything you want to remember.
How cool. I mean, at risk of giving away trade secrets, what's the sort of, I mean, is the most important thing repetition? Is that would be the beginning of it?
No, it's one of them. Yeah. The most important thing is visualization.
Yes. It's my namesake, Dominic O'Brien, was a world beater on this, wasn't he? Yes.
Yeah. And it's all about visualizing, pouring information into a movie so you can remember it.
When I do a hook and tease, Paul, I don't know if you're familiar with the terminology. Yeah. So when I do a hook and tease and I say to people, here's a mystery or here's a game, find out later, and then I always forget. Is there anything I can do specifically to improve that part of my broadcasting arsenal?
The thing that you're wanting to remember later, turn it into a tiny little movie in your mind.
Right.
And visualize it on your monitor that's in front of you in the top left-hand corner or wherever it is you go to before you get into the show. Whenever you look at that point on the screen, you'll run that little movie and go, I've got to tell them about fish cakes or whatever it was. What little gem you have.
So it's a bit like there's a new therapy called brain spotting, which focuses slightly on putting things in your brain in relation to a screen or having it. I like that idea because So what I'll do is I'll try that tomorrow, but unfortunately I might not remember. Shall I do it now to remind myself to try it tomorrow, or would that not work?
Keep doing it every day.
So I'm putting a little film in the top left-hand corner of the screen, which is called the hook and tease film, and it's a little dancing animation of some hooks. I don't know what a tease would look like, so it's just lots of hooks. And
why not make it a hook and hang on it every day, the topic that it is you're going to reveal?
I baby steps, Paul, baby steps.
Okay.
I've got it there. So tomorrow I'll come into work, I'll power up the old computer, and hopefully at some point I'll remember that I'm going to do the experiment on hooks and teases using Paul's advice.
Absolutely. Look top left of your screen and you'll see it. And actually looking up and to the left actually helps you remember stuff anyway. So whenever you're trying to think of something to remember, look up and to the left and it'll increase your chances of remembering.
This is amazing stuff. Keith, you're not allowed to remind me, all right? I'm going to do this properly in laboratory conditions. Round of applause for Paul, please. Andy's in Tunbridge. Andy, question or answer?
Answer to your continents question.
Yes.
So I'm not completely convinced that a definitive answer is available for this.
No, me neither.
So plate tectonics, you mentioned plate tectonics. Now, when the supercontinent existed, the bottom of South America, the bottom of Africa, and the bottom of India were all joined together. So if you think about like the segments of an orange, that's kind of how the bottom of that part of the continent existed. And it butted up against what is the landmass of Antarctica. Now, when they all broke away, they all kind of moved in their different directions. And I think that's the reason why those three continents have got that shape. The top of South America actually butted into the crook of the Gulf of Mexico, which is why you've now got that finger of Mexico that comes down. Again, and anything else is probably coincident. Now, mountain chains, obviously...
I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to run out of time, and I want to give you a round of applause. Qualifications?
Cartography degree.
How many have you got now? You're on almost every week. This is a mark of your brilliance, but also of the quality of the questions.
I have to start taking records for this. Will be 6 today.
We might have to get Professor Hal on soon to find out how many he's got, if he's kept count. I think you've got a way to go, though, before you catch up with Professor Hal. You've got another one. Here it is. And it'd be a contender for a ball game if I haven't given you one already. But I'm going to give it to Mitch because he's just back from his honeymoon. Mitch with the mosquito question. It could have been almost anyone this week. Absolutely first-class mystery hour. But Mitch is the only one who has recently returned from honeymoon. And as we all know, they'll be looking for something new to do in the evening soon as the as
the reality sets
as the marriage develops. So it's going to be a Mystery Hour board game. That's it from me for another day. We'll do it all again tomorrow from 10. That was the rudest joke I've ever told on the radio without being rude. There's Sheila Fogarty.
That wasn't rude. That
no,
was
it
quite
wasn't
sweet.
rude.
No,
Yeah,
that was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was all right. That was okay.
Thank you.
That was